I believe everyone has noticed a significant change recently, with frequent visits from the U.S., repeated invitations, and a generally neutral attitude. There has been a marked improvement in interactions between China and the United States. He Feng engaged in multiple rounds of talks with Janet Yellen in the U.S., totaling 10 hours. The APEC summit was held. China's top-level officials visited the U.S., and recently, Liao Min, Deputy Minister of Finance of China, hosted a briefing in San Francisco. When asked by reporters whether the progress of the economic and commercial working groups indicated a turning point in China-US economic and trade relations, Liao Min replied, "The economic relationship between China and the U.S. is rooted in mutual interests in the economic field, objectively benefiting both countries and their people. The driving force for mutually beneficial cooperation between China and the U.S. is strong, based on a solid foundation and vast opportunities, but it requires equality and mutual respect as prerequisites. Legitimate concerns from both sides should be properly addressed. Only then can China-US economic and trade relations truly progress steadily into the future." How should we interpret this warming of Sino-US relations? In this video, we'll focus on this topic and cover the following: US's failure in containing China. The US constrained by the Israel-Palestine conflict. Global situations constraining the US. Benefits of U.S. China easing tensions. Since the end of 2016, when Donald Trump assumed the U.S. presidency, comprehensive containment of China became the only consensus between the two major U.S. parties. Over the past 7 years, the U.S. has utilized all available means but has reached a dead end, with all measures proving futile. Despite the tech war accompanying Raymond's visit to China, China's industrial upgrade continues to accelerate. In the trade war, China has also emerged victorious, evident in the recent attendance of over 130 countries at the Belt and Road Forum, a testament to its success. Financially, the U.S. started raising interest rates in 2021, but China resisted the pressure and took a parallel path. Now, the U.S. is struggling, facing significant risks in its bond system. Militarily, the U.S. has persistently tried to instigate conflicts in the South China Sea and Taiwan Strait, prompting capital to view China's periphery as unsafe. Yet, China effortlessly diffused these tensions, with the actual conflicts erupting in Europe and the Middle East. Presently, the U.S. finds itself at a loss. Its previous strategies have proven utterly unsuccessful. Coupled with recent domestic and international challenges, adjustments are imperative. What's the paramount significance of the Israel-Palestine conflict this time? Two overlooked news pieces shed light. The first, according to Reuters on November 9, citing insiders, following a meeting between Qatari and Hamas officials on the 8th, the CIA held talks in Doha with the Qatari Prime Minister regarding the Israel-Palestine conflict. In essence, the U.S. engaged in more direct communication with Hamas through Qatar as an intermediary. Second news. Also on November 9, during a press conference at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a journalist from Agence France-Presse asked, "It's reported that senior Hamas officials stated that a Hamas delegation will visit Beijing. Can the Chinese side confirm this?" The Chinese response was, since the outbreak of the Israel-Palestine conflict, China has maintained close communication with all relevant parties, actively contributing to promoting ceasefire, protecting civilians, providing humanitarian aid, and preventing a humanitarian crisis. China will continue to make unremitting efforts in this regard. Actually, as early as October 14, Blinken had a phone call with China regarding the Israel-Palestine conflict. Blinken stated, "The U.S. supports a two-state solution to resolve the Israel-Palestine issue and supports the United Nations in easing the situation and providing humanitarian aid. We are willing to enhance communication and coordination with China." Taking into account earlier occurrences, in 2023, China mediated Saudi-Iran reconciliation, greatly enhancing its international image. Meanwhile, the U.S. has faced setbacks in the Middle East from the beginning of the year, with the OPEC unanimously agreeing with Taiwan against oil reduction. Subsequently, the U.S. failed comprehensively in mediating Saudi and Israeli relations. In this recent Israel-Palestine conflict, the U.S. surprisingly shares a consensus with China, hoping for an early ceasefire. Of course, this isn't because the US doesn't want war, but because its declining national strength genuinely cannot sustain multiple fronts of engagement. The recent series of US attitudes indicate, in handling international affairs, the present-day US is no longer what it was 70 years ago, where supporting Israel could dominate the entire Arab world. Moreover, today's Israel no longer strictly follows the US's commands. The US acknowledges that it cannot handle many international affairs alone now. If it continues a head-on collision with China, the US will be overwhelmed on multiple fronts and lose ground. In simpler terms, if China's rapid development is left unchecked, the US will decline for sure. If aggressively containing China, the US will decline even faster. Regarding Middle East and European affairs, there's substantial divergence between the US. Two major parties. The Republican Party wants to compromise with Russia, abandon Ukraine, and unconditionally support Israel. The Democratic Party aims to stabilize the Middle East, provide limited support to Israel, while allowing the Russia-Ukraine conflict to continue. Currently, Biden faces the most challenging period, where the biggest threat isn't just opposition from his voter base, but the potential disintegration of allies. The White House's relationship with Israel is increasingly tense. After Israel frequently posed challenges to the Biden administration, both sides entered a delicate standoff. Today, the U.S. State Department openly criticized Israel for demolishing the home of a 13-year-old Palestinian in Jerusalem, but Israel remained unyielding, immediately countering that these people were all terrorists. Since Obama's era, tensions between Israel and the U.S. Democratic Party have escalated, particularly now, reaching a critical point. Biden earnestly wishes for an early ceasefire in the Israel-Palestine conflict, focusing on the Russia-Ukraine war. However, supporting Israel remains unquestionably politically correct in American politics. Biden can only reluctantly support Israel while watching his approval ratings plummet. The current Biden administration undoubtedly faces its weakest moment. How do we interpret this? Though both parties consider China an opponent, the Republican Party aims to stabilize Russia and concentrate on China. The Democratic Party believes in handling both sides firmly. As for Russia? Russia says, actually, I still want to join the West, rebuild Nord Stream 2, and Central Asia is my territory. India is my good brother, and I also want a say in Southeast Asia. Of course, the Russia-Ukraine conflict has been ongoing for nearly 2 years. Russia has grown rapidly, speaking highly of China and expressing various intentions. However, in terms of interests, Russia remains stringent and unwilling to compromise. The unbreakable bond between China and Russia, but Russia's growth isn't yet rapid enough. In these past 7 years, the rapid decline of the United States has been evident. However, being perpetually confrontational with the U.S., refusing to compromise at any time, is both naive and foolish. The competition between China and the U.S. is a long-term process. Consider that the U.S. became an industrial powerhouse in 1894 and the world's top economy by 1904, yet it took 40 years more to become the global hegemon. One must acknowledge that in certain aspects, the U.S. exhibits remarkable strategic endurance. Long-termly, the conflicts between China and the U.S. are structural and irreconcilable. Both countries hold vastly different value systems. The U.S. pursues an international order based on strength, while China seeks a peaceful coexistence within a shared human destiny. Nevertheless, this doesn't hinder both sides from making strategic adjustments in the interim. This current meeting between China and the U.S., the Biden administration aims to gain breathing room to alleviate the current unfavorable situation. And China? China is fully aware that this amelioration in relations is temporary. But that's all right, China can strive for more time and seize more opportunities. The essence of this recent thaw in U.S.-China relations fundamentally stems from the comprehensive failure of the U.S. government's 7-year-long containment strategy against China, compelling the U.S. to adjust its tactics. Simultaneously, the eruption of the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the Israel-Palestine conflict showcased the weakness of the United States to the entire world. The U.S. is utterly incapable of managing a two-front conflict, and it's already on edge regarding Iran. U.S. military bases in the Middle East are now under continuous attacks, with Houthi forces downing U.S. drones, yet the U.S. pretends to turn a deaf ear, acting as though it doesn't know. The current state of the U.S. is one of internal and external turmoil. It not only struggles to handle external matters but also faces financial crises internally, potentially encountering problems at any moment. The U.S. will realize that without China's cooperation, it simply cannot manage or navigate many issues. May both China and the U.S. grasp this rare opportunity amidst the chaotic world to develop themselves and bring a glimmer of peaceful influence to the world. This is the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment. We genuinely appreciate your support.